as you guys can see, we got the G35 back on the dyno. We were trying to install the flex fuel sensor, but we're not able to because there's no real good place of putting it. So what we've decided to do is just basically tune it on 93. The problem is that you guys may or may not remember, but early on, all this wiring here got destroyed one way or another. And so now I've got to go through and find out which one is for the boost control solenoid. So now we have the ECU Masters boost control solenoid just hanging out here. Obviously, we need to install it. So what I've got to do is basically I'm going to go from end to end to find out which one of these wires connects to the ECU directly for boost control, and then we'll key it on and try to find wherever 12 volt power is. All right, so a couple of issues here. So the wire on the inside is blue and yellow, and the only wire in this little bunch here is this one that's blue and yellow, but we have zero continuity here. So the way I figured that out was I looked at the pin out here, and so G5, which is aux 3, is the wastegate solenoid for the boost control solenoid. And so I basically went from here and I found out which connector it had here, and I was able to verify it with this little connector here, and it shows a blue and yellow wire. So I know from working on the chaser that the boost control solenoid is in that area, but unfortunately it seems like with some of the goofy wiring here, I don't know if it's just not attached anymore or whatever the case may be. And if that's the case, that's fine. You know, like this wiring is not exactly the best here. And we do know that the factory connector was kind of or the factory wiring in that general vicinity was cut from before, and we figured that out when I was doing the intake air temp wiring. So unfortunately, with that being said, we're basically just gonna run a new wire. It's just way faster for me to do it that way than trying to go through all this and figure all this out. This car really just needs a new harness. So now that we got the wires done, what we're actually going to do is we're going to start setting up this boost controller. Now, this car is not going to be controlling the top port of the gate, so we're going to be hooking this up like an internal wastegate basically. But now I do want everyone to keep in mind is that the ECU Masters boost control solenoid, the ports are different than your standard blue ones. So, all right, so whoever put this together in terms of like the lines and whatnot did not do a very good job. So this hose here is on the wastegate, from the wastegate, and it used to wrap around and it goes into the port on the compressor housing, right? So that's fine and dandy, that's how it's supposed to be. So here's the problem with that. This hose, this nipple coming off the compressor housing, it's pretty tiny. I'm not sure what size this actual hose is, but it's pretty damn small. The hose coming off the compressor housing on the wastegate housing is rather large. It's so big that when I put it onto the boost control solenoid here, it doesn't even have any resistance. So the hose can freely slip on and off without any problems. So definitely going to be a cause of concern there. We should be able to get away with just tossing a zip tie on it and it should be nice and tight. So the problem that we're having is that we have a grand total of 4 vacuum nipples, and they're all different sizes, or well, there are 3 different sizes. 2 of them are the same, obviously coming off the boost controller, but the wastegate port and the compressor housing are 2 vastly different sizes. Okay, so it's all poorly wired up, but it's wired one side to power, the other side to aux 3, which is pin 5, and all I got to do now is get the laptop in, test it to make sure that the boost control solenoid is working. Okay, so we got the sucker strapped down, we got it calibrated for the RPM signal, and I'm basically done for the day. All right, so I had a massively late start today, so we're gonna try to get this all dialed in. So what we're gonna do is we just want to do a couple of partial throttle pulls. So we're gonna be doing some steady state tuning, just just to kind of get this going. We're not shooting for a ton of power in steady state mode, just to make sure that the car holds together. And then we'll get going and try to make some real steam behind it. Okay, so I've made some very, very basic changes on the car right now, just to kind of get the fuel dialed in. It's definitely, hopefully it's going to be on the really rich side. We've got boost cut set at about 15 or 16 psi. Timing is a bit on the low side. I pulled, you know, 3 or 4 degrees out of the boost side of the tables, just to, again, just trying to get this dialed in. So we're gonna get this going on steady state mode at about 3,000 RPMs. We'll check it all over, make some changes, then we'll raise it to 4,000 RPMs and we'll rinse and repeat. And that way we can get a decently built fuel table in. And then from there, we'll start cleaning it all up. Okay, so we've got 3,000 RPM, 4,000 RPM, steady state kind of done. From there, I can kind of guess where everything else is going, and you can see that our fuel map is starting to curve out like it's supposed to. So I think at this point, we're gonna start doing ramp runs from 2,500 to say 5,000 RPMs, just kind of get that within the ballpark without going too crazy, and then that should kind of fill in the data of how the curve should actually look. So I think we're at a decent stop here. We're gonna let the car cool down a little bit. Okay, so we got our first run in. Like I said, it was 2,500 to 5,000 RPMs. And so I've already made changes to the fuel table, and I've went ahead and I've kind of smoothed that out a little bit. So just to give you guys an idea, we're 5,300 RPMs or so. We're only making 60 kPa, which is like 6 pounds of boost or so, something like that. So, but yeah, like I said, it's kind of what we expected. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to make a couple more ramp runs. You know, we're going to go from basically 2,500 to 5,000. We'll do that a couple times just to get this all situated. And then from there, our next set of runs will be 3,000 to 6,000. And, you know, we'll kind of repeat that mess from 3,500 to 6,500. All right, so we got a couple pulls in. We were able to kind of get it out to red line, and we're 0.72 lambda. So it's a little bit on the rich side, but nothing that I'm terribly concerned about. As you can see, we wrapped it out basically 7,000 RPMs, I think. But in terms of power, we're right under 200 horsepower. So it doesn't really surprise me that that's kind of what it makes at 7 pounds of boost. It's a pretty large turbo, and timing is pulled out of it. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna introduce a little bit more timing back into it, just to see if we can get some more numbers on 7 pounds of boost. I don't want to turn the boost up just yet. Okay, so now that we have that done, we're gonna start turning the boost up here to see what that nets us. So it's in open loop mode. I have it just 25% duty all the way around. I don't think it's gonna 25% rather. So we may get a little bit of a change in boost. Currently we're at 160 kPa, and like I said, our boost cut is set at 190 kPa. So we're trying to just bring the that run early only because that we weren't making any more boost, and there was no reason for us to run any more heat just because that it's not doing anything. All right, confirmed that boost control is going up to 25% and there's no real changes, so we're gonna bring this up and try it again. All right, I had to increase the duty cycle all the way up to 50% before we saw any changes in the boost controller. So that tells me that the frequency is wrong here, but more importantly, right at the very end of the run, it started just misfire. So I think we can either pull plugs and try to gap them down a little bit harder, or go from there. But there's not really much else I can do. I'll let it cool down and see if it is an ignition coil type issue, but I can't say for sure. But we couldn't even get it up to RPM because it was just popping so damn bad. So